What does it take to create stories that don't just entertain, but that actually shape generations? Because the stories we grow up with don't just live on our screens, they live in our identity, our imagination, and the way that we see what is possible and what can be possible for our futures. If you've ever felt like you wanted to create something that outlives you, wanted to build work that impacts people on a deeper level, had a love of fun and bringing entertainment and joy and laughter to millions, or just wondered what it really takes to lead at the highest levels of creativity, this conversation is going to open your eyes. In this episode, we're posing the question: what does it truly take to lead a creative vision at scale while staying aligned with purpose, representation, and impact? Because building something meaningful is no longer just about talent, it's about leadership. And it's about holding a vision through complexity and making decisions that affect millions and having the courage to tell stories that matter and resonate. Today's guest is someone who has spent more than 2 decades shaping some of the most beloved and globally recognized brands in children entertainment.
Nice.
Rich Magallanes is a creative leader, storyteller, and founder of Animated You, with over 20 years of experience as a showrunner, executive producer, writer, story editor, and series developer. He is the creator and showrunner behind Rainbow Butterfly Unicorn Kitty, that my husband was also a voice actor on, and most recently served as showrunner and executive producer on the highly anticipated reboot of DORA, reimagining one of the most iconic characters in children's media for a new generation. In that role, Rich wasn't just overseeing a piece of content. He was the decision maker in cross writing and animation and design and music and all of these pieces that go into holding and building and sustaining a global $1 billion franchise. Prior to that, as senior vice president of current series and production at Nickelodeon, Rich led an extraordinary slate of iconic shows, including SpongeBob SquarePants, The Fairly OddParents, Danny Phantom, Penguins of Madagascar, my kids love it, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He also founded Nickelodeon's Writing Fellowship, creating pathways for diverse, emerging voices to break into the industry and to tell stories that reflect the world that we actually live in. Rich has been recognized as one of the most powerful and influential Latinos in entertainment and named one of the top 50 players in kids entertainment by The Hollywood Reporter in 2024. But beyond the titles and accolades, what makes Rich's work so powerful is his commitment to storytelling that is inclusive, imaginative, and deeply human. Rich represents a level of leadership where creativity meets responsibility, where storytelling gets to become your legacy, and where work that you create has the power to shape how an entire generation sees themselves and their place in the world. I'm Kimberly Spencer, founder of Crown Yourself, TEDx speaker, and coach and mentor to sovereign leaders who are here to build lives, businesses, and legacies rooted in purpose, impact, and truth. This is the Crown Yourself podcast that exists to explore what it means to lead at the highest level, not just in business, but in creativity, influence, and in the stories we choose to tell, both in our minds and outwardly in the world. So, if you're ready to step into a bigger vision for your work, your leadership, and the legacy that you're here to create, stick around. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Crown Yourself podcast so you never miss an episode or a conversation like this. Let's dive in. Welcome, Rich.
I'm diving in. That's amazing. What an intro. Wow. Yeah, I sound like I've done a lot of stuff, and I guess I have.
I think that one of the greatest things is seeing how you have gone from your incredible successful career into also starting something new with building your personal brand and building out your live event, Animated You.
Yeah, it's been quite challenging, exciting. I like to say it's exciting and exhausting all at once. But yeah, I it's been something I just, we've been talking about, me doing other things for quite some time, especially in the speaking realm. And I think it all started, to be honest with you, when, we used to talk and you'd say, do you ever write that down? I'd say, write what down? And you'd say, what you just said. And I'd say, what did I say? And you're like, every time I talk to you, you drop these little bombs of wisdom and like something that a true leader says, something that I said, oh, this is just me. And then you challenged me to take on that, make a post every day. And I said, sure, why not? And I did it, and it felt natural, it felt free. They were completely unscripted, and they just kind of came pouring out of me. And all these people started coming up to me going, "Man, those things are great." And I was like, "You're watching that?" Like, even people on high levels too, and like higher levels than me, they were saying, "That stuff's wonderful. Like, you should keep doing that." And I said, "Oh, you don't think it's silly or?" And they're like, "No, it's relatable. Everybody feels that way. And what you said helped me out." And I thought, whoa. So for me, it was empowering, and starting something like this, animated you again, just felt organic. It feels natural. And it's just kind of like free flowing forward. It's a lot of work, I will say, but it does feel like there's something fun about it. There's something great about it. There's something exhilarating about it. And there's something about giving back to the community is also really at the heart of it. And I think that is what really drives me every day, because I have over 20 speakers and they're all coming, just to help out, just to give their knowledge, their experience, and to share with the creative community that is really in an unstable situation right now. And that's where the idea came from, was like giving back some stability, some camaraderie, some connection, networking, socializing, whatever it can be, so that we can kind of hold hands and create that bridge and get through this together.
Yeah, because the animation industry and entertainment industry in general is just getting rocked by AI and corporate layoffs and cuts and all the things, because no one really knows what's next. And what you've put together and the lineup of speakers of some of the, I mean, I'm honored to be one of the speakers coming in to bring in some motivation and inspiration. But like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like multiple Emmy winners and people who have designed characters like Steven Silver. I was like, he designed Kim Possible. That was my cartoon. It was named after me. Well, it wasn't actually named after me, but like my TED talk was on becoming a warrior for possibility. Like possibility and Kim have always been tied together. And that's like being able to meet these iconic brands, like iconic humans and creators who have just shaped a generation. And you have been a part of animation and storytelling that has shaped millions of children's lives. When you look back, what do you believe is the real responsibility of a storyteller when it comes to shaping identity at such a young age? Because you focus on like pre K. A lot of your content has been in pre K.
Yeah, I kind of pre-K was not my initial start or beginning. I'm more of a very slapstick guy, so entertainment was always my very first through comedy, because I feel like comedy is universal. Um, I don't speak Mandarin, but when I would go to China and stuff like that, if I can make people laugh, there's a connection, there's a bond, and I use that like as probably one of the strongest examples, because for somebody who goes to I've been to China several times, there's a complete language barrier. But again, if you're able to break down the walls through comedy, everyone's tensions go away. They start to relate to you more. And I feel like entertainment is the same way. If you can carry that through in an entertainment value, people will relax and they will stay tuned. So to go back to your question, your original question, what is the intention of all that? It's really about keeping people, especially for kids. Nobody, wants to do homework at the end of the day. So it's about the entertainment value. And then the identity of it is the relatability piece. I always felt like there should be a good moral lesson at the end of everything. It doesn't mean you have to hit them over the head with like today's lesson was about. Nobody wants to hear that either. We used to do that a lot on a lot of different shows where we have like a real good moral lesson at the end of the story, but then undercut it with comedy, and not to take it away, and not to say that didn't mean anything, but more just to get one last little laugh, one last little moment of enjoyment. But yeah, it's really about having that relatability so that you can see yourself in that character or relate to that character. There's characters that you want to be, and there's characters that you just want to invite to the party. And there's a difference between that too, but all of them are acceptable. And, when it comes to other characters, you want to make sure that they're huggable, they're lovable. And then there's characters that you just want to hang out with. So I think creating that identity for kids is something that sticks with you. I mean, listen to you when you talk about Kim Possible. It's not like you're a kid anymore, but you're still remembering this and you're still like saying, oh my God, that's me. Like we all do that with our own characters. So it's an amazing thing to be able to do that. I mean, an amazing trait to be able to tap into somebody's inner essence, I guess, and sort of, really lock in on that and keep it going.
Who's the character that most shaped you as a
Oh,
kid?
God. I knew you were gonna ask that. And,
Couldn't
that's
help
like
myself.
asking
I
me
had to know.
well, when people always say, like, "What's your favorite movie?" And if I had a hard time with this for a long time, and I realized, oh, like I said, I'm a very slapsticky guy, so I would say Airplane. I just love that laugh out loud, outrageous, comedy. Like it just didn't expect it at all. And it was so silly, so sophomoric. But if it's done in the right way, it'll lock in and you'll be like, oh my God, surprising, funny. I am not going to tell you my character. There's so many of them. There's so many of them. There's really honestly, huh?
Top 5 characters that shaped you as a kid.
I don't know, as a kid, I really honestly, my favorite shows were Tom and Jerry, which are probably, I don't know if that's like the best one because some of these things are so violent. And actually coming back into more of the years of when I started working in animation, I learned a lot, so much on SpongeBob. Steve Hillenburg was like one of the best creators I had ever met in my life. He had such a, integrity for his character, and I really learned that through him more than anybody. Really, you just saw the way he thought about SpongeBob, the way he believed in SpongeBob, the way he protected SpongeBob. It was absolutely amazing. So, there's characters like that, which I really,
Mhm.
loved. There's characters like El Tigre, which I really loved too, because that was a really, big part of, me taking that on with the creator, Jorge Gutierrez, and, really, bonding with him and his wife, Sandra Akiwa. And, we had really good time developing that out and getting that up and running. And Penguins of Madagascar, I mean, I can go on and on and on. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was like my biggest baby of all. And meeting Kevin and all that stuff and going through all that and having him become a dear friend. And to this day, amazing, amazing journey.
Yeah, and he's a huge endorser of what you're creating with Animated You, and one of the first guests on your upcoming podcast.
Yeah, yeah, he just came out and, did the podcast with me, and he endorsed it, the animated you, and he was only so sorry he couldn't come out and be in person because he was like, "Look at my schedule," and it was just like 2 or 3 months, I think he gave me of his schedule, and it was just, like, jam-packed. I mean, that guy's busy, but we traveled all throughout the country, not just this country, we went to Europe, and, we went to London and France and Germany, and man, promoting that show was absolutely insane. And we were just together all over the place. Like, you wanted to know about what we're doing with the new show, talk to me. You want to know about why pizza, why the names, talk to him. And, of course, he's the star. It's his show. So it was an amazing journey that we did together and completely won't forget any of it. Unforgettable.
As a showrunner and an executive producer, you're the final decision maker across so many creative elements. How do you hold that level of vision and responsibility without losing the magic of creativity, especially when you're working with so many different people?
You know, it- for me, there's a lot of fun in it. I really do like stepping back and seeing the overall picture. I'll tell you a little insight. I used to be an actor, but I always been a writer. I have a degree in journalism and I wrote for the school paper and then I went off and wrote for a radio station and broadcast. And I was bored to death with broadcast because it wouldn't let me tell a story. It was all factual and it was 5 sentences or less. But when I was doing my newspaper, every article I wrote for the school, the campus paper, San Diego State, was on the front page. And I was actually scared to death of writing in the beginning. And it was people like some teachers that said, "You're really good at this. You should, go get a job at the paper." Somebody, my magazine article class, the teacher said, "This is an awesome story. Not only are you getting an A, you are going to publish this." And I thought, I have no idea what you're talking about. Crazy lady. I just did this for your assignment for your class. And she said, "I'm going to show you how to do it." And it got published. And I was in college and I had a published piece and I thought, well, maybe I do have something, a gift here for writing, for telling stories. But I think, just going down the line, it's looking back at everything and seeing how everything is produced. And, as an actor, I was always, like, you want to be in front of the camera, but then I was also working with a bunch of friends, and we were writing, directing, producing, acting. We were doing everything. It was indie back then, back in the days before indie was indie. So all the money was out of our pockets. All the pizza came out of our pockets. Everything came out of our pockets. And I started working for this director in live action, and he took me behind all the closed doors. And I was nervous. Like there were some doors I was like, I don't want to go in there. And he said, be quiet. You're coming in to sit down. You're going to listen, and you're going to just be quiet and learn. It's literally what he said to me. And I was like, okay. And it could have been, first read with some A-list actors, or it could have been a business meeting, or, the finance people, or everything that was being done in production. And I got to see the first scripts. I had to read them. And then we went into production, and I got to sit in the editing room. I got to give notes. And then at one point he was like, your notes are great. You just give the notes. This was on a movie. And I was like, what? Like, no, you do it. But after I left that, I realized, oh my gosh, I saw something from the very beginning, the seed of a project, the script, the outline into a script, multiple drafts, then go into production, and then see all the things that had to be happening to make that happen. And the whole day was like a heart attack every single day for months. Then we uprooted and we went to Iowa. And I think I lived in Iowa for 3 months because we did pre-production, location scouting. I wasn't just like, there for just the 4 weeks of shooting. It was the whole thing. And then after that, we stayed to tear things down and put things, all this stuff. And then the birth of the project comes out. And it was like, that was amazing from A to Z. Oh, wait, there's another alphabet starting. Now we got to market it and publish it and get it out. And, that changed my world. That made me go, wow, I really like seeing the overall thing. And it was right after that I got my job at Nickelodeon. And I started going, yeah, this is cool. I was still very much into writing, and I got to continue my creativity. If I didn't, I would never have stayed. Would have never stayed. But I fell in love with animation because I realized how animated I was. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
a walking, talking animation character. And so I got to, sit in tight with the creators, and for the most part, most of them realized, oh, you got creative chops. You're not just an executive, who's walking in and giving notes because you want to give notes. I had notes that made sense and that were furthering stories and ideas that were, birthing episodes and series and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's actually I do know. That's how it happened.
You do know because you lived it.
Yes.
I think one of the amazing things that I have had the pleasure of working with you for so long is you have had this underlying value of fun being imbued into all that you do. I remember when we were just in talks for you beginning Animated You and this project and launching your business into the world and your brand. And you're like, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. So often, especially whether it's, in having your own business or in leadership and high level and highly visible roles, people can take it very seriously. And how have you navigated that line between professionalism and still having fun, enjoying the experience and making it fun as a group project for everyone to work on together?
I feel like every time I approach a project, I have to have fun doing it. And if I'm not, I don't think other people are going to have fun. Even if I'm working with an editor or a composer, I always, are you having fun on this? Are you having a good time? Because if they're not, you're going to get that in your product. And so for me, yeah, you're right. I always said, if I'm not having fun doing it, I don't want to do it. And I probably won't do it. I am the
Mhm.
executive who walked in the room and said, pull my finger, and then was like, now let's get to business. It's sort of like you don't take my casualty or my fun play for granted. I want to have fun, but I want to be serious about what we're doing. And I think if you can get everybody else on the same page, it's great. When you can't do that, it's a problem with that production or that show. So I really try to work that in with every show that I'm working on. Sometimes it's tougher and sometimes it backfires, and other times people, the biggest thing is that you can always ask people. I learned this when I was in college, where I've worked so many jobs, but I worked at a copy shop and I thought this would be easy. I work at this copy shop, make copies and do my homework. No, it was like the worst job. It's probably the hardest job I ever had because it was customer service. And people wanted this kind of paper and they wanted that laminated and they wanted this size and that color. And it was just absolutely the things were insane that they wanted. But at the end of the day, and not everything went right. And at the end of the day, what I learned something very important in that job. And that was when something doesn't go right and the customer's absolutely pissed, they're just like mad, like you said it was going to be $10 and it's now 15 or whatever it is. Or you said it was going to be, laminated and it's not. And that kind of thing. The one phrase I learned was like, what can I do to make it right? And
Mm.
that usually people just were like, yeah, of course you apologize. Say, I'm so sorry it didn't work out that way. But the minute you said, what can I do to make it right? They usually didn't say, give me a refund, give me my, give me $5 off. They usually didn't do that. They usually said, well, it's okay because you offered yourself up in a way that it exposed them, and not to expose them for the worst, but to create a bond and to say, I'm hearing you. This didn't work out the way you wanted. Let's correct it together. And usually sometimes it was just like, well, can we just redo this? And you're like, sure, you know? So there's something really about reaching out to people and being able to sort of create that bond with them that gets you past that hump. And if you can't do that, then some people just have issues, you know, and they're just, they have issues. So
Oof. You know what? I think you just gave me like one of the best parenting lessons. I don't even know if you realize it, but looking at that, I see with my kids and struggling with some discipline and some challenges, and th- that question alone, it strips the shame and allows you to be of service. And I think so often we are so conditioned to want to be right that when we offer up that service of like, I'm willing to be wrong so that you can be right and I'm going to make it right for you, it creates such a powerful space of service. So I'm actually going to teach that question to my kids.
and again, there's those people who won't accept it, and there were customers who were like that too. But there's people who will say, no, because they just want to stick to their guns. And I forgot who said this to me recently, but they said hurt people want to hurt people. And I know it's an older phrase, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Hurt people want to hurt people, and sad people want to make you sad. So, because nobody wants to be alone. But
Yeah.
yeah, the minute you open yourself up to that and say, you know what can I do to make it right for you? Like I'm just let me know. I'm here for you. You're usually gonna get the like, well, okay. It's like a turn. It's really it's humanistic, and it's a bond. And it's like you said, there's no shame in it, and you want to make it right.
Yeah. Yeah. And to
People.
be able to lead from that place. And what happens though when you're not? Like I know you've had some experiences, obviously not going into confidential information, but I know you've had some experiences where someone was not willing to budge and make it right. How do you practice, as I know that you're a Buddhist, practice forgiveness and letting go and releasing?
Sometimes it's harder than others, but you really have to realize nobody can really stop you from being who you are and doing what you want to do. And that's been like probably my biggest lesson out of any of that stuff is when people do that and they are trying to hurt you or they're trying to refuse you, just like they just don't want to go along with you. It's okay. You just let them be themselves and you will learn something from it, whether you want to or not. But it's never easy, and it doesn't feel nice. It doesn't feel good to have somebody not like you, somebody not want to, get on the page with you and the whole production or the team, or even if it's like you just individually. But it does happen. That's life. We're human beings. And there's people who are just going to absolutely say no to you. And I don't like you. And you're like, I don't know why. I'm opening myself up to you. I don't get it, but that takes me right back to that hurt people hurt people. You
Mhm.
just wanna hurt somebody, they do, to bring that person to their level or to be right. I found out that normally when that happens I've seen this happen to all my bosses. male, female, every single one of my bosses above me. People would be like, "Oh, she's an idiot," or "He doesn't know shit," you know? And I'd be like, no, she's not an idiot. Like, she's in a position that is an extremely challenging position, and I'd like to see you in her position and make those calls. She's has her people above her, believe it or not, you know? And so I learned that early on just watching my bosses and watching people. Whenever you get into a leadership position, people wanna stab you in the back. People are gonna come after you.
Mhm.
And, again, it's a little bit of human nature to do that, and at the same time, sometimes you can turn around and go, "Hey, what are you doing? Put down the knife," like, "Put down the
Put it
rocks,"
down.
"Is there an issue? Let's talk about it." And again, it goes back to people. Some people will put them down and be like, "Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. You know what? I thought you weren't paying attention to me." Sometimes it's just love, and other times it's deeper than that, So that's kinda how I deal with that. I have to let people be themselves. And some people just want space. And if that's what they want, you give them the space. You don't have to go around and try to fix everybody. They're going to go off in their life and they're going to have other issues with other people. And they're going to say other things to other people about you or about whomever. And it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you are who you are. And that's what I learned. I am who I am. And I keep going down this path, doing what I do, doing what I love to do, doing what I'm passionate about. I can't let somebody derail me because they didn't believe in my philosophy. They didn't like my personality. They don't like my hair. They don't like my height. They don't like my voice. They don't, whatever it is. You can go on and on and on. It's like your color of your skin. You can go start getting really deep on this. People just do those things, and you're like, "You know what? You be you." This is the self-talk that I've had to do with myself so many times, but you be you, and
Yeah, I
just
think that's the hardest part
yeah,
with leadership is
yeah,
like, especially with leadership and visibility, quite frankly, with making yourself more visible as a public face, whether it's, coming out from the shadows of a successful career or from your business, and then suddenly you're the face of it. You're going on podcasts, you're being seen, you're doing video reels like you started doing. Like, there are people that are used to you being at a certain level in a certain way, and they may not fully resonate. And I think there, with leadership comes your own capacity to be disliked, to do your best to make it right for those that you serve, and to be aware that not everyone's going to like you. And that's okay too.
yeah. I love this conversation because, it's taking a turn. I love it because, you know, you can't be afraid to take chances and do what you wanna do because, like, those reels, for example, I could say, "Oh, no, people are gonna make fun of me," even with animated you. Some people are gonna get on board, other people are not, and, if they're not gonna do it, then it's not for them,
Hmm.
period. I can't let that stop me from doing what I wanna do. I wanted to create this. I wanted to, bring it to fruition. I wanted to make it a reality, and I'm doing it. I'm sure there's people, like, going, "Oh, look at Richard." Alright, I listen to David Goggins too all the time, and
Yeah.
he is so inspiring to me because of his situation and, just everything that he has to say. But I think I was listening to him this morning when I was jogging, and he was saying, um, back in the day, a lot of people have titles for him because he was really overweight and he was, not a good human being, and he tells you all this on his own terms. I don't wanna repeat about his
Hmm.
stuff, but he says that he decided to become this person he is now, Goggins. He created this other identity, Goggins, and he decided to live that, and that's who he is, and that's what he does, and he doesn't care if you go, "But I know David Goggins, the overweight guy who was lazy and whatever, flunky and whatever." And he goes, "I don't care. I created my own thing, and this is who I became, and this is the life I'm living." And to me, like, I just hear that and I go, "That's inspiration. Like, that is crazy." We all can do that, especially in this day and age where people are taking on titles and personas of whoever they want to be. And, this is who they rightfully believe they are. And we are all encouraging it and supporting it. Why can't you just take on who you want to be? Don't be afraid to do it. Just do it and start making it happen. And don't worry about that side where the people are going to either come on board or not. You're going to have your people who are going to come on board. And those are the people that you want to hang out with. Those are the people you want to be with. Those are the people you want to celebrate. And the people who are off to the side, they may trickle over a few and they may just stay off to the side. And that's okay. You keep
Mhm.
doing your thing and keep marching by.
Yeah, it's kind of how you created the brand Richie Mags.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
really own it. That's kinda your version of Goggins, where you are building this founder-led brand and business with Animated You, but you have, like, Richie Mag's Mind Melds, and that's your podcast, and that's what you're building, and it's who is that you are excited to become?
It's funny because I thought about that. Of course, I've had Richie Mags as a nickname for decades. And it all started because people couldn't pronounce my last name.
You
So
have
they
to say
would
it with an accent, it has to be sexy. You have to be Magallanes.
Magallanes. Yeah. But they
Magallanes.
really everybody was just butchering it all the time. And then and I'd go to New York for all my work meetings and the leader of our company would say, and next up we have Richie Mags. And she just said that in front of 500 people, for me to go up there and give a presentation about what was happening on this show or whatever it was. It didn't matter if I was in a conference room with 10, 20 people or up on stage with 1,500 people. She would say that out loud. And then next thing you know, everybody in New York, it became my New York name, Richie Mags, and so I thought about that when I was listening to David Goggins too, because I was like, I didn't even intentionally create this alter, you know, uh, character. I just kind of like fell into it. But yeah, there's something about Richie Mags who's a little different than Rich Magallanes, So, but of course, we're the same, just like David Goggins is Goggins. I wonder if he's listening to us going, "What are you guys talking about me for?" Because you're
Oh my
inspiring,
gosh, if
dude,
Goggins
and
was
we love
listening to
you.
this podcast, oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh my Goggins.
Um, but seriously, there's something about that where you create your own personality, you create your own character. It doesn't mean you have to change a name or create, or wear a super cape or create a nickname for yourself. You just need to like mentally decide this is what I want to do. You already know that's what you want to do anyway. You need to decide you're going to do it and step into that. And you've been really instrumental in helping me to just take that leap because, for a long time I've been like, oh, I was really apprehensive. I think there's a lot of things, a lot of excuses. You're working, when you're running shows, your life is just that show. And you don't really have much time to think about other things. That's another thing about me is that when I do a show, I get immersed in it. There's so
Mhm.
many shows I said, "I don't want that show. Don't give me that show." And then it becomes, the biggest thing in your life. Every show I've worked on has been like, it just overwhelms me because I get sunk in it, I deep dive in there and I really do want to know every little thing about it and how it all works and what's the outcome going to be. Really, at the end goal, that's what that's all
Mhm.
about. But yeah, I think, having that character, that alter ego character that shines through and let it out. Let it out.
Get out.
Mhm.
And it's been such a joy and such an honor, like, truly to be able to have coached you and worked with you now in building out this brand and seeing the evolution of you going from getting that role at Nick and then growing into now building your own thing. And I think one of the hardest things that I see is, especially with leaders who have achieved an extraordinary level of success in their careers or in their business, is that shift in stepping out and becoming the face and putting yourself front and center and speaking and being out there with your voice and owning your voice. What level of courage did you have to summon in essence in order to come forth and do this? And where did that future self, that Richie Mags, that identity kind of guide you into this process?
I think there's definitely a lot of courage involved, 100%. But then there's also I kind of been doing this all along. Reality check, I was doing these animation shindigs, which I call them. And I did them because I felt like our industry was collapsing. And I started doing this like a couple years ago. I realized
Mhm.
now's a good time to get people together. And I just was going to, be that guy in the bar in the corner, where I sent out an email or something. "Hey, I'm gonna be at so and so. Anybody want to meet up on?" And then everybody say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." I was like, "Whoa!" And next thing I knew, I was like, "Oh no, I got to make a flyer. I got to do something." So I got to go get space. I have to be an adult and actually go around town and find out like, "Hey, if I show up with 50 people, is that okay?" And most people were kind of like, "Yo, you can have that corner, but then anybody can, go in and out." And I'm not. I like to do things right. So I don't accept that, and I ended up renting out a space, for the first one, and I had over 100 people show up, and again, it was just me saying, "Hey, let's just get together." And then I did it again and got a bigger space
Mhm.
and had even more people, and it was just this giant blowout thing, and then I did it recently at the end of 2025, same thing. Got a space, got about 100 people showed up. You know, and each time was like, "Hey, I think we all need to come together. Hey, I think now we really need to come together." And it's just funny that I kept thinking that each time, like, "I think we really need to get together." I think we really now need to get together. Now we really, really need to get together. And that were like stepping stones into creating Animated You, creating my own business where I want to do coaching and developing and speaking and consulting and all these things and kicking it off with this huge event where all these great speakers are coming in to give back to the community. It's kind of like the animation shindig over 2 days with a purpose other than having a margarita. But actually, to be honest with you, one thing about the animation shindig is all about networking. And I
Mhm.
always felt networking really helped me out when I was coming up in my career.
Mm.
I belonged to almost every single group. And I would go there and just hang out and talk. And it was a wonderful way for me to get to know people outside the circle as well as deep within. And I got to know people that were high on the chain, ladder and people that were not. And it didn't matter because, hey, over time, people, if you're doing something right, you're going to move up. So, yeah, it
I
was.
think that's one of the lessons of Hollywood that I wish more entrepreneurs just understood,
Hmm,
that it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that was one of the lessons that I learned early on, like, that has served me in every pivot into entrepreneurship and into growing my own business. It's like, who do you know? Who are you connected with? And relationships really are everything, and, I'm a very loyal person until you burn me or my kids.
hmm,
Then the mama bear comes out. But the that or my husband, I get very defensive about him with his, online haters, the
yeah.
hater fans who don't like his,
But that's because
12-year-old
he's
boy
great.
voice.
You're going to have haters. It's part of life.
Yeah.
You need to get through that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I get haters, I celebrate it. I'm like, "Yes, that means we're moving farther." But
Yeah.
it's a hard part it's a hard reframe because it goes against our innate desire to belong and to be liked, but ultimately, you will never really get hate from anyone who's ahead of you, who has been in the leadership positions, who is doing what you're doing and doing what you're trying to do. There most people are so willing to lend a hand. They wanna help. They wanna have it be a
Right.
we win, and I think that that's one of the great things that I've seen about your leadership specifically is you really encompass it as, like, this is a we win. This is for us and for our community and for the animation industry in general. It removes the ego. I mean, you're one of the most decorated animation execs with tons of titles and, most influential Latino in entertainment and like all of these titles, and yet you're one of the most humblest guys I've ever met. And where do you source that humility? Like, is that because of your background and how you were raised, or is that like, do you just like not let the accolades even land and keep going and focus your attention on what you're building and creating?
For me, award shows are always funny. I feel like I'm the Sean Penn of the Oscars or something where I like refuse to show up or, you know, d- because I always felt like it's great to win awards. It's great to
Mhm.
win the trophy, and I get excited when we do it as a team. But there's also that weird thing about it to me where I'm like, we didn't make this show to be like, "Ooh, let's beat that show over there. Let's beat that show." And there's also a lot of BS to it because the studios themselves, they get all their people to vote on that thing, and and some of the other studios don't have as many people. And this is all like, what is this we're doing? Why are we giving awards? I mean, but there's also acknowledgement, which you can't get away from either. So it's a funny thing to me to do that. I just like sharing with people. I did grow up in a situation where I didn't have a lot, and I felt like nobody was ever there. I grew up in a family of 5 boys, but I felt I couldn't say, all alone. And it's not a diss on my brothers at all or anybody like that. It's the fact that we were all trained to do it and to get our own, to survive on our own. Everybody was just surviving on their own. And at the end of the day, there was nobody there to say, "Hey, you got the goods," or "Hey, you'll be okay." And that for me became a thing where I was like, I want to give that back. I want to tell any kid out there. That's why I started doing my speeches for kids, mostly underrepresented Latino kids, to let them know whether they understand me or not. Cause some of them are 8, 9, 10, 12. When you get into those years, you're sometimes like,
They
oh, I'm
kinda
going
get
into a
you, but they
room.
kinda don't.
When I did the Hispanic conference in San Antonio, Texas, I think it was 2,300 girls and then 2,500 boys or something like that. Yeah, one group each day. And I thought, oh, they're gonna murder me, because they yell things out all the time, like, "Hey, what kind of car you drive?" The stuff like that, and you're like, but you got to be quick and be like, "Why does that make me important to you?"
Mhm.
Ooh, like it doesn't matter what kind of car I drive. What kind of car do you want to drive? Why do you want to drive that? It's just again, it's that relatability thing. But I think giving back on that level, letting somebody know, "Hey, you're gonna be okay. Take my hand. You'll get through this. I don't care if you're on welfare right now or, wherever you're coming from." I worked with a lot of different people who went to Ivy League schools. I put myself through college, but I don't discount that toward the people who have the parents and the money that held them held their hand through school and guided them through that experience. I didn't have any of that. I put myself through school and didn't have any kind of guidance whatsoever. Do I wish I had guidance and money and all? Yes. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of actually proud about what I achieved and the fact that I swam out of that swamp, and that's why I want to tell people is like, you don't have to live in that swamp. You can get out of it.
Yeah,
So,
because I mean, your family was on welfare and government food stamps for a while.
yeah, I was so young that it's like you don't even realize how poor you are.
Yeah.
But, you got neighbors bringing by food, and we were on food stamps and everything, and we just lost the house. We lost the house at an early age where, and my parents were divorced, and my dad had to come back and take us because I don't know what would have happened. We would have been on the street probably. But, it wasn't like it's not really a sad story. It's more just reality for me. That's what happened. And then, I wrote in this whole speech, it's on me. It was on me to figure it out. It was on me to survive. It was on for me to finish. It was on me to succeed. And so, and for some reason, I had that drive. I had that drive in me. I'll leave you with this. I used to say all the time, I never knew what exactly I wanted because some people say, always knew when I wanted to be an actor. I always knew I wanted to be a writer. I always knew I wanted to, I had no idea what I wanted to do for most of my life, you know? And I really, especially during those years of, elementary school, high school, and college, I had no idea what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. You say things, random things all the time, but I never knew what I wanted to be. But what I did know was I knew what I didn't want. I knew I never wanted to go back to welfare. I knew I was never going to step foot in one of those offices ever again and get government handout stamps. And listen, if you're in that position, you can get out. You can work at it. You can do things. But if you need the assistance, take the assistance. So it's not a knock on the program or the people or anything like that. I just knew what I wanted, I knew what I didn't want. And that's what guided me.
And I think the other thing that I've just seen having coached you for years is you have this ability of saying yes to yourself, like a full yes to opportunities, to just seizing it and leaning in fully when it feels aligned. How do you discern? Because the higher you go, you get more and more opportunities presented to you. More opportunities, more podcasts, more speaking engagements, more career opportunities, more shows. How do you discern what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to now at the leadership level that you're playing at?
It's just a matter of knowing what the opportunity is. I just got opportunity to go to this film festival in Spain and said yes, like right away. Because I was like, that's new territory. I haven't done that yet. And, I can summarize things quicker now than I could before. And I made a lot of mistakes too. And I think once you learn from your mistakes, don't do that again. Or next time you do that, you got to come at it from a smarter way. You just spent a bunch of money that got you nothing. Sometimes you have to also realize maybe you spent a bunch of money, but you have to know a lot of people. So maybe it was worth it, like you just have to figure it out. And I think leaning into saying yes to yourself can be very hard. And at the same time can be the easiest thing you've ever done because all you have to do is say yes. All you have to do is recognize that's an opportunity. Now, if you have this opportunity and that opportunity, sometimes you got to weigh things out and go, wow, should I take that job or this one? And then you gotta go inside and go, what feels better for my heart? What do I really want to do? Forget about the salaries, forget about the this or the that. When I took on, as a concrete example, the job at Saban Brands, I was offered other jobs, 4 other jobs at the same time, all within the same week. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I could do this, which sounds really risky. I could do that, which sounds super exciting. I could do this, which is completely concrete and solid. This is an income and it's 401k, everything. And then there was Saban Brands that it felt like a wild, wild west. It was a solid income too, by the way, and
Mhm.
all that stuff. But it wasn't something I knew so well. And it was also opportunity because he said, we want to go bigger and better with our animation slate. And he was saying, help me. And the fact that he was so willing to come out to me, calling me on my phone, like him on the, like, what was like, why is he calling me? Doesn't he have people to do this? But he invited me to his house. And I thought, this is the guy. This is a connection. This ended up being Wild Wild West, but I don't regret it at all. And then he sold the company. So we all had to get out like after 3 years. But man, it was like one of the best things in my life because I learned he took my whole career, pulled it inside out and I suddenly became a buyer. I was a buyer, a seller, a producer, a developer. I did it all, under his umbrella. I learned 10 times more there, and then I left and it was like, now I had all this knowledge. I was armed with so much more. Took that chance. Didn't go the safe route. I could have taken the safe route, easy, but I listened to my heart and said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm taking this. And it worked out in my eyes.
Rich, I I think that question, as well as how can I make this right, are two of the best questions that our audience can really lead with. And from this episode is, what is your heart saying? With all of these opportunities, like tune in when you get quiet. What is your heart saying is what is that next best path? And that opportunity. And I know that that's what you've poured your heart into, Animated You, and building this and building this space. And I know it's only going to grow from here. I mean, there have been like people have already started to notice the quality of the brand that you're building and the caliber of the people that you're attracting into this world. So if you're in Burbank, California, somewhere around Los Angeles, and you are desiring to take some form of animation, take your idea to IP, then go to the link in the show notes and sign up for Animated You. There are student passes, working pro passes, if you're in the industry, and VIP passes where you actually get a one-on-one consult on your project with Rich. Like, for an insane price, quite frankly. Like, I know I have been pushing you to have higher prices, and you're like, nope, this is the price. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's that's your choice, and I will always support my clients in their sovereignty of their choices. go there to the link and grab a spot if you have ever wanted to turn your children's book into IP, if you into like an animated property. If you've ever thought of, "Oh, I have this idea for this crazy show, could I produce it?" Yes, actually like now is the time. Like there is so much opportunity now available to everyone to be a creator. And if you even had the inkling that that's something that you want to do, go forth and sign up for Ridge's event. He has literally built the roster of the who's who in children's animation. And I am just so in awe of the connections and the relationships that you have built. And but I'm not surprised because it's been, 20 years in the making of
Almost 30.
almost 30, 25. Yeah.
Yeah.
25 years in the making of building the high caliber of relationships of who you know. And so who you get to be in the room with is such an opportunity for anyone looking to build their brand, build their creator profile, get out there and get a show or a creative property made into reality. Rich, I have loved this episode. I wonder if you are ready to switch into a little bit of rapid fire to wrap this up.
Here we go. Let's do it.
Who is your favorite character in a book or a movie and why?
Favorite character in a
I know I
book?
kind of asked you this already, but
I know. I would have to say I always loved Three Stooges. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier,
oh yeah, we
but
built that into your brand profile
yeah,
with how
yeah.
you write.
So, Mo was like one of my favorites. So I'm gonna go with Mo.
You know, funny, I tried to show my kids the first episode of for Three Stooges, and after I was like, "This is more violent than I expected.
Oh, it's
We're gonna wait on this one."
but it makes sense to me because it's cartoony violence. It's so
Yep.
over the top, wacky, stupid, insane. But I don't know why. I just think, I love fart jokes. And they didn't even do fart jokes, but I love Mo. But yeah, go ahead.
What person alive or alive and in their time would you wanna trade places with just for a day?
Trade places with?
Like, to be in their body, live their life for just a day. Anyone in history.
Wow. That would definitely have to be a Buddhist monk because just having that sovereignty, that peace, and that quietness, the stillness, and to be able to do it on the level which they do and I cannot do. I haven't got there yet. Yeah. Now, see, I'm not going to do it, but yeah.
You're still on the planet. Enlightenment still
Yeah.
is possible.
Yeah.
What is your money routine? Like, how do you view money? How do you think about money?
Mm, that's a strange one for me. Money is money. I don't try to stress about it. I know you have to have it. I got to pay my bills. I know I got to do this. I get, I will say concerned about having it to be able to live my life. And at the same time, I don't ever want to feel like it's controlling me. I don't want it to control me. It doesn't control me. Money is, I can get it if I need to, so I can avoid that welfare office. Yeah, it doesn't control me. I control it.
What do you define to be your kingdom?
What do I define to be my kingdom? My house, my area of where I live, that my environment. That's a place of peace, I think, no matter where I live. I've always made my home, even if it's been in an apartment, in a bad neighborhood or something not great, I make it great. I've done that with everything I have. That's anything that's the possession of I make my bed every day. I do it because I believe in taking care of your stuff, my stuff, for me. So I'm comfortable. So I know it's clean. So I know it's good. So I feel comfortable walking in.
What does it mean to crown yourself?
Wow. I think crowning yourself is just acknowledging yourself at the end of the day, acknowledging all your worth, everything that you've been doing, and saying, You're doing good. You've done good. Continue to do good." That's crowning yourself. It's very simple. I never thought about that one, but yeah.
You know me, I like to make you think with my questions.
Yeah. They're good thinker questions. I'm not good at rapid fire, but yeah.
Rich, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show. And again, if you are in the LA area, if you want to turn your idea into IP, go sign up in the link in the show notes for Rich's Animated You Symposium and go follow him on Instagram. His link is down below as well in the show notes. Rich, I would love to have you back. I want to have you back in 9 months from now to see the progress of where Animated You is and what the next event for next year is coming into fruition. Deal?
Yeah, deal.
Okay, deal. As always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now. Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where together we build your empire and transform your subconscious stories about what's possible for your business, body, and life. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of CrownYourself.com, and I'm a master mindset coach, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, known to my clients as a game changer. Each week, you get the conscious leadership strategies you need to help you reign with courage, clarity, and confidence so that you too can make the income and impact you deserve. Imagine this podcast as your royal invitation to step into your full potential and reign in your divine purpose. Your sovereignty starts here, and your reign is now.